too.
Yeah. I've just been following the Facebook.
Okay, so you're live, mate. Hey.
I haven't got the yellow box saying, yep, we are live now.
That's good.
So, yeah, I've just been following the Facebook.
Well, that's fast today. The last couple of times we've hooked up, tried to hook up from Google Hangouts, it's been extremely slow. And what's really interesting about this whole thing is that the weather here in New Zealand's really bad.
Well, your room and yourself and the resolution's as clearest I've ever seen it, so I can't figure it out. Hopefully no speed bumps.
Well, I'm just checking to see if you're coming on. Yeah, you're on. That's good, because a couple of episodes ago, for some strange reason, we only got your voice. We didn't get your graced with your physical presence, my friend. Hey, I just want to say a quick couple of things. I really enjoy Carl contributing his time for this, because Carl's a busy guy, and he's making waves in the business world here, and so I appreciate that, Carl, the time that you're putting aside. And what's really encouraging too, mate, is that we're getting comments from people who watch the show. We're not interested in world domination, as we've said. We just want to hang out and talk to people who enjoy the kind of music we like. But it's pleasing, and it's really, really encouraging to get kind words and comments or support from people during the week. In particular, I got a couple of really amazing comments where people were talking about your guitar, man. So yeah, we're going to have to probably have a guitar show soon, where you're going to have to talk a little bit more about that guitar. But yeah, a lot of guys are blown away by that guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I've actually, like I told you, wanted Keith to get it set up, but it's actually worn in. I've only actually started playing it for the last 2 weeks, since I've owned it since 2012. Because it's been under a bed this whole time in storage, and another place, obviously. But I unfortunately sold a few guitars, but I'll never sell that. I'd rather donate my left leg and right testicle to science and keep that. I think, I mean, it's just too. To me, the guitar is, what's the word? It's the testimony for me going to America and conquering America, bringing it back. It's like a, what's the word? Symbolic. It's symbolic for me, the guitar, of a shrine.
Well, we've got Dan Sullivan here, and he's saying, hi there, Fender. I have to crash rehearsal in the afternoon, but wanted to say thanks for the show. I'll watch this tomorrow for sure. Dan, appreciate your kind words, and yeah, you crash because rehearsal's important, and yeah, appreciate the kind words and the support. Thanks, mate. Hey, we've got another brother in the chat, R2 R3 Locking Nut, all the way from Chicago. He's here. G'day, man. How are you? Oh, your Carl's gone to get his guitar.
Oh, no, I've got to get a picture.
Oh.
Can you see that? It's a framed original Get Your Yayas Out poster. Rare as hen's teeth. But as a kid, just looking at Keith with that red Gibson, I was just in awe, starstruck, amazed. And it never left my mind. I said, I'm going to own one of those one day. As a poor 8-year-old with an AM transistor radio with a tape cassette that hardly worked. I fixated on that picture, and I said to myself, I'm going to own that one day, and there it is.
Well, that's a testament to you, because that Get Your Yayas Out era, that photograph too, it's etched on my mind. Keith just oozes coolness. I just loved him. I love that guitar, and no disrespect because I'm a Strat man, but here in New Zealand you can pick up Strats a dime a dozen. You know, you can pick up cheap ones, you know, at middle of the road, and you know, you can pick up some really top-notch ones. But picking up a Gibson like that here in New Zealand in that condition, you don't ever sell that guitar.
No. I maybe that would be a special order or something, but I was quoted. Someone wanted to buy it off me just to hang on the wall. Actually, a guy I used to work for, and he was going to pay $5 or $6 grand. I said, nah, keep it. Sorry, keep it. But yeah, it's just it's a. Besides the fact, it's actually, and you and I both have that background with your work, and when I used to work in that field, is the craftsmanship. Unbelievable, you know, handmade.
Oh, look, you know, as much as I go on about classic vibe, made in China guitars being good value for money, and they are for a cash-strapped musician or for someone who wants a really good entry-level guitar, but you just can't beat an American-made guitar. My Clapton Strat, you just can't beat it. It just feels different. There is a difference between guitars made everywhere else and guitars made in the States.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy because I had the Corona guitar, which is apparently a guitar factory in Southern California, and it's just someone's opinion, but he reckons that the difference between the ones made in Mexico and ones made in California is the mass produced in Mexico on a CNC machine. Speaking of, like with Dawn, but with some of those factories, a lot of them are still handmade. So there's just a bit more the detail with the supervision being handmade in America.
I was always told that a guitar is made in Corona and the guitars in Mexico are made with a guy handling a Corona, holding a Corona.
That's a good one. Yeah, would surprise me. Well, Corona is a Mexican beer with a lime. But no, thanks for the kind words. No, I cherish that. I'll quickly show you the case.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah. I haven't seen this guitar. Carl and I live relatively close, and we've spent a bit of time together over the years. But he's hidden this guitar away from me on purpose because he knows that I would have asked to borrow it. And we know what happens when you loan guitars out to people.
Whoops. I've got to get a decent camera set up. Gibson Custom. Turn the light on. Here we go. The certificate of authenticity for this instrument is enclosed in the pocket of the case. And then it's beautiful when you wrap it up and it's all silk.
Oh, wow.
See that?
Wow.
It's all fur. Little hideaway compartment there with your book.
That's your stash box, isn't it?
Yeah, Gibson book. Interestingly enough, the case is made in Canada. So, yeah, it's a really nice case. I just love that purple, silky little extra there. And it's yeah.
When you get that set up,
Yep.
you're going to have to crank that through that Vibrolux, man. We're going to have to do a sound test. When you get that set up, we'll live stream from Greenwood Street, and we'll crank that amp up, eh?
Yeah. That's the little tweed amp, or is that your grey Fender amp?
My Fender, yeah. That needs to be tapped by Gibson.
Okay, nice. Oh, that get a real Chuck Berry sound.
You know, as much as I'm aware of that photo that you showed of Keith, the enduring image of that guitar for me is Clapton, the farewell concert at
Royal Albert.
Royal, yeah.
Mm. Oh yeah. Well, that was probably that's probably my second favorite image of that particular guitar. Well, obviously Chuck Berry and Freddie King, but they played. But Keith with that Yayas was my favorite image. But I've watched that farewell with Eric at the with that red Sunshine of Your Love, and I've watched that on a VHS about 100 times, and it's amazing.
Yeah, in his biography, he's got an interesting story about that guitar. Like he played some good guitars before he bought that, but when he bought it, he set it probably like we all do when we buy guitars. we lean it up against something and we sit and we admire it. And he did that obviously too, because he was a young man. And he actually felt after him buying that guitar that actually felt that he was officially a blues guitarist.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
That was a dot, hey? That was an ES335 dot. Was it dot or pearl inlay? It was a dot, eh?
I don't know. I'll have a look. Maybe someone in the chat can. We've got a couple of guys in the chat. I don't know if it's a dot or a pearl. I'll have a look. I just remember the color.
I'm just having a look now. Oh wow. No, you're right. No, it's like mine. It's a 335 with the wow. Yep. Wow. The person I'm thinking of that played.
Here it is. There, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it there.
Yep. So it's not a dot. It's your one.
Yeah. Well, it's a 335. I've got the 355. Hot rod model.
Yeah, beautiful guitars, man. Beautiful. The closest I'll ever get to one of those will be an Epiphone version.
Yeah. I'll tell you who played that really well. He played the dot version. That's how I got confused. Was Dave Edmunds.
Oh.
Dave Edmunds is one of English's most underrated guitar players. He did the blues. He did the cover version of "I Hear You Knocking," which was a #1 hit. Smiley Laws.
And who was another guy that played one? Who was that guy from Blood Sweat? Played at Woodstock.
Alvin Lee.
Alvin Lee.
Mm.
He had one. Yeah. So when you think about it, actually, there's quite a few guitar. Yeah. Beautiful guitars. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I'll bring it into the store one day when I'm just a bit more, when my mind's a bit more settled.
Oh yeah, it's no hurry, mate. It's no hurry. I'm just happy to see it and happy to chat with you. So what's the topic of the show? Is it just a continuation and a chat on riffs? I think you've got a couple of riffs that you want to talk about. Yeah.
I'm just up to we've done 1 section, 2 section, 3. We're up to our 4th section. Well, this is the 4th time we'll be talking about the riff series, I guess, if you want to call it something. I mean, just a continuation of them going through their career as they matured, I guess, as they got older. Obviously, you've got a few riffs as well.
Yeah, a couple. Yep.
Okay. So basically, last week I finished out on my Exile on Main Street riff period, and obviously that 68 to 72 period was, as we talked about, was their most famous period. In the next period, they still were a monster band with monster hits, but obviously they didn't quite have the same consistency, as a critic would put it. We still love them regardless. But a couple from Goat's Head Soup, which is an interesting album. Obviously, that would have been the middle period of Keith's heavy use. But I've always liked Do Heartbreaker.
Mm.
You know, just because I was thinking about it this morning as I was getting my head prepared for the show. The Stones ain't known much for wah-wah pedals, are they? And I'm pretty sure that must be a wah wah intro, isn't it? Mick Taylor? Is that a wah wah? I don't know.
Must be. Hey, Quentin James. Sorry for not saying good day to you. We've got another friend in the chat, Carl.
Yeah. So I'll just go to the song. See if it's okay. Here we go. Okay, yeah, not cool. So Mick Taylor played the lead guitar part, which features use of a wah-wah pedal and a Leslie speaker. Leslie speakers are interesting because they are speakers for organs. And Stevie Ray Vaughan made Leslie speakers famous with things like Cold Shot. I think they were, yeah, I won't go too much into it. But
Clapton played through Leslie too, didn't he? With Cream?
With Badge, wasn't it?
Yeah. He had he had Leslie on stage there for a while. Yep. I think when they were touring there late in their career, I think just about every second song that they played, obviously live, went through that rig. Yeah. So I'm just going to mention in the chat here. So R2R3, who's a wah nut, R2R3 has about 7 or 8 wahs, and he's asking the question Stones and a wah wah. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, because I mean, what do we know about Stones and wah wahs? Pretty much nothing. I mean, obviously our buddies Eric and the Cream used the wah wah. Jimi Hendrix, the wah wah was like his third arm. That was his accessory in his back pocket. A lot of those great guitar players use wah wahs, but Stones not so much. But I'm glad that with this particular song we got to hear a little bit of it. What I like about that song is just basic chords and just a good rock song, and yeah, just a big fan of that song.
How well did that song do on the charts? Do you know? Are there any?
So it's the second single release from Goat's Head after Angie, which obviously Angie was number 1.
Number 1, yeah.
Reached number 15, so not bad. Top 20 hit. Top 20.
Yeah, Angie's is the song off that album, isn't it? That's the go-to song.
Yeah. I've never actually listened to that album all the way through ever in my life.
Wow.
Don't know much about it. I should listen to it. I just
I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah, don't know much about it. I like if you actually when you own the original album, it actually comes with a little internal poster of a goat's head in the soup. It's quite neat. And it's
on the Facebook group, someone posted that pic recently.
And it conjured up a couple of different thought patterns. One thought pattern was, the Stones are continuing their demonic image of goat's head and Lucifer and the devil. And other people said, no, they've been in Jamaica. That's typical of Jamaican cuisine. Reading too much into it. But yeah.
So I'm going to shout out to Wayne, who's also known as Absolute Mayhem. Hey, you guys. Wayne is a friend of ours, Carl from Canada, who drops by. I catch up with him on a couple of other shows, so it's really good for him to drop by and say g'day.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds like there's a few people listening in.
What you should do, mate, is you should get the chat set up too, so that you can interact with the chat too. Maybe we should, maybe we should look at doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, so Goat's Head. Obviously, not an album the Stones are known for, but they can still pick out some neat little rock tunes and the use of the wah-wah. And not a bad little tasty solo. So it looks like all Keith did was play bass on that song. Mick Taylor did both guitar parts. So here we go. Yeah.
And that was the first album that the Glimmer Twins produced themselves?
I think maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure.
They got rid of Jimmy Miller, didn't they? So
it says Jimmy Miller's producer on here.
Oh, is he on there? Is he?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Yeah, Jimmy Miller was producing it. Yep. So the album was recorded in Kingston, Jamaica. Yeah. So interesting place to record an album. Obviously nice though. Can you imagine being in Jamaica? That'd be incredible. So they didn't quite have that reggae feel down, but they had a bit of funk going on in that album, a bit of funk and a bit of rock. But yeah. So Heartbreaker with your 44. I want to tear your world apart.
Yeah. I always thought Goat's Head Soup was the Glimmer Twins. Yeah. I thought so. It must have been the album after that. It's Only Rock and Roll that.
You're correct.
That they produced themselves. Yep.
That's correct. So I think, and it goes to show you that I think they were all pretty much probably a little bit tired, burnt out, probably deep into a bit of a few little a bit of substance abuse and time for a change. I think Jimmy Miller, probably run its natural course. And the album, I wouldn't say the album suffered from it, but the album, Jimmy's best work was at an end. And that's just life. That runs its natural course. You have people in your company, your crew, and they do their job. And in order to remain fresh or vibrant or interesting, sometimes someone has to go and someone new has to come along.
Oh, of course. And I won't get into to create a dichotomy between what would he have done with records had he stayed, because if people want to have that conversation or that discussion, that's fine. But he's he moved on, and the Stones, well, certainly Keith and Mick thought they were adequate enough to produce the album, and they did a good job. They certainly weren't the instant classics that the other albums became, but they endured and became popular over time, I suppose.
Yeah. And what's interesting also, I'm just reading a bit here, the Goat's Head Soup was abundant with outtakes. Two of these, Tops and Waiting on a Friend, would surface on Tattoo You 8 years later and feature Mick Taylor on guitar. So even with the up and downness of that particular album, there's just a lot of little nuggets left over.
We've got another friend who's just popped into the chat, Carl, JJ from America. He's originally from England. Yep. So he's sad at the moment, like me. England didn't make it into the final of the World Cup, so he'll be dejected and
it's been
crying.
Interesting World Cup. A lot of the key teams bailed out pretty early. Croatia of all teams.
Wow, yeah, it's just all the favourites are gone. Germany, Spain, Brazil. Yeah.
But yeah, and another neat song from that album. A lot of these songs are riff melodies. It's hard to describe what exactly a riff is, but when the Stones when push comes to shove, they'll always bring out a good rocker or Chuck Berry inspired song, and it's almost a riff lick, almost star star. We can't say what it really means on live YouTube, but as we know on that 75 tour, that was one of the, I guess the highlight songs of that tour, especially, with the big stuff coming out underneath the stage. But nice rocker, that one, isn't it? Nice rocker. So
I'm just putting in the chat what it is without saying it, just in case people in the chat don't understand what that song is. Yeah, Star. Yeah.
Another continuation of the Stones and their love-hate relationships with groupies, I guess. What they've seen and what they've encountered. Yeah. Star. But what a neat little intro. Chuck Berry little lick and just a good rockin' riff.
Yeah. I always liked that song. I always liked it. I thought it was I didn't realize actually what the song was until years later.
Yeah. It's Stones. We've talked about the Stones in the early part of their career. They did blues really well, but through the continuation of the start of their career till now, till forever, they always do. They've done Chuck Berry really well, and we've got to thank Chuck Berry for that particular sound.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because I'm going to jump in and have a talk about a song that I've picked, and it's off Get Your Yayas Out, and it's Carol. I always loved Carol.
Yep.
The way that you get that chug, I always loved that. With that little finger.
Yep.
So good.
Yep. And what's interesting is another good thing I like about Chuck Berry songs, you can play them any key you like. It doesn't matter, because Carol and Little Queenie on that album were both played in A.
Little Queenie, sorry. What did I say Carol for? Gosh, I'm useless today. I'm sorry.
Oh, is it Little Queenie, is it?
There's my notes there, guys. Honest to God, it was Little Queenie. I even written the chords down in D, A, and E. Yeah. But again, both those songs.
Meanwhile, I was thinking.
Yeah. Both those songs.
Yeah, and Star's got that sort of little, that rhythm sort of a thing going on. But once again, the Stones paying homage to their greats, putting their own mark on it, and the end result being great. That's it, rock and roll. And this will tie into my next song, and then I'll stop talking about these types of songs, because it's only rock and roll. Always loved that song. I never get tired of listening to that, ever. And
there's so many different versions out there too, isn't there? And that the Stones have sung, and they're all great. Speeded up versions, slow down versions.
And I'm pretty sure the original version that they kept as the demo made the final cut, and it doesn't even have Charlie on drums.
Who's the drummer?
The guy from the Faces, Willie Weeks. So let's have a look. The song was originally recorded one night at a studio at Wood's house, the Wick in Richmond, London. David Bowie's backing singer to Jagger's lead. Oh, here we go. Willie Weeks on bass, Kenny Jones on drums. The song on the album was similar to that of the original recording, with the Stones keeping the original rhythm track.
Now, that's interesting because Willie Weeks has played with Clapton over the years live too.
Yeah. So
awesome bass player.
Yeah. So, and there's about 5 guitar overdubs on there, isn't there? Keith just went silly in the studio. He obviously really liked that original backing track, and then added all his fills and leads in later. Because there's a couple of acoustics, there's a rhythm, there's a lead all the way through, there's a solo. There's a lot going on in that song.
So was the song the primary influenced by Keith? Was it? Was he the prime songwriter on that song?
Yeah, I would have said that famous interview with where Keith is smacked out of his face, and he said something about he went down at Ronnie's house and stayed for a night, ended up staying there for a month, didn't come out and see Son for a month or something. I imagine that would have been just part of a jam, that song. And
so I always thought that Keith was the guy that did the music, did the riffs.
Yep.
And the lyrics were always contributed by Mick. Would that be fair? Would that be fair to assume that would be the main foundation in this songwriting partnership?
Yeah, well, it says here basically, if I could stick a knife in my heart, spill it on the stage, it was just to get back at all the journalists saying that, you know, your next song's got to be better than their last song. But it looks to me like Mick pretty much wrote that whole song, lyric-wise, and Keith just came up with obviously the inspiration as far as the jam. So what would have probably happened is Keith and Ron would have jammed. Keith would have kept the tapes, probably played it to Mick, and Mick would have just got his pen and paper out, and said, "This sounds good."
Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and see how that songwriting process panned out. And I suppose 50 years later you've got their memories when journalists ask them and talk to them about who wrote what part of the song, and I think they contradict each other. It's a little bit like the Beatles as well. One person said that they wrote 70% of a song, and the other partner would say, well, actually, I wrote 90% of it. But I've always been keen to find out, actually, how did a hit like, Honky Tonk Woman, was it something that they just came up with in the studio, or was the riff something that Keith was just doing on a Friday night and recorded it, said, come over, let's go to the studio and play this riff, and then all of a sudden, Mick's throwing out these words, these lyrics?
Yeah, well, I've heard Mick say that sometimes him and Keith will be sitting down. Keith will just be strumming away or banging away on the guitar, and some of the songs will just start out just by Mick humming along, not even actually, almost like as it's called, scat. And then they'll get a few words going, and the words will turn into a sentence, and the sentence will turn into some kind of catchy lyric or a paragraph or a melody or whatever, and it'll just go from there. It's just an amazing chemistry those two have, almost like those two are on some kind of like wavelength no one else can tap into, and that's where your Mick Taylors, your Billy Wymans, and your Brian Joneses have suffered, because everybody wants to participate in some kind of way.
Look, if there's one thing that I can understand about Brian Jones clearer than I can understand anything about Mick and Keith, is that I'm a guitar player.
Yeah,
You can give me some chords and some lyrics, and I can go through and I'll be able to play the song after, you know, a couple of run throughs or a couple of minutes. You know, most guitar players can follow the chords, you know, and we can jam and follow each other. You know, you can do a chord progression, you know, a 12 bar progression for hours. But the juice, the difference is taking that jam session and coming up with a unique riff and a song that's going to be a blockbuster and blow people out away. And I can't do that.
Well, how many people have made a career of, and it'd be horrible to be labeled as this, but if it means that you're a millionaire and that's that, then but the people that have been known as one-hit wonders, they can still have a career off one song. And just to write an amazing, catchy song would be incredible. The Stones have done literally upwards of 100.
I just want to stop and just acknowledge the guys in the chat. We've got Jason Wade, who's popped in to say g'day. Thanks, Jason. Carl and I appreciate your support. We've still got our good friend R2, R3 here. We've got another friend, Jim Goodry, who is a friend of ours. I think he's a Canadian. I met him on Ben Coombs Canucks with Guitars show, so we appreciate you stopping by, Jim. Carl and I are just continuing a chat on Stones Riffs. We've got Wayne, Absolute Mayhem, here saying g'day as well. So yeah, appreciate the kind words, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for popping by. But yeah, getting back to Brian Jones. So Brian Jones obviously could take some songs, some cover versions, twist it a bit, add it a bit, and that was great. But couldn't jump that hurdle of writing a song.
No, he couldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, he should have been grateful for the talent he had. I mean, you've got guys that don't even actually play instruments who are part of a songwriting team, who sit on boards, who are actually wearing suits, who are gifted songwriters, and you don't even never see them. But you've got a Beyonce or some pop artist singing them. So everybody, the fact that Mick and Keith are so amazing in the sense that they are everything. The showman, the lyric writer, the riff performer, the whole package from scratch. Nothing fake or manufactured there. Just real. You know, and getting back to how clever they are. If you like, I'm just looking at some of the liner notes of "It's Only Rock and Roll" and "Doo Doo Heartbreaker." A lot of those lyrics are based on real things, real events. You know, Mick's having a go at a journalist on "It's Only Rock and Roll" with "Doo Doo Heartbreaker" about shot a boy in the park with a 44. Mick had been reading an article about a cop that shot the wrong guy in New York. You know, so the Stones are in tune with what's going on at that time as well. They're not just
of course, and there's that song "Doom and Gloom" that came out, and that was their reaction to the 2008 financial crisis that gripped the world. You know, they're still singing and writing songs about current events.
91 High Wire about the Gulf War, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't quite have that biggest banquet Street Fighting Man appeal, but still doing it. Yeah. No, it's just neat how those two can just create something, tie it into what's going on at the time, and 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, it still sounds as good today as it did then.
Well, yeah, it's mind-blowing. It's I've spoken to a couple of people over the last couple of months who go and see the Stones now, and I've asked them, you know, what do they think, you know, and these are people that I've met on social media, so I take them at their word, and they're Stones nuts, and they've seen, one guy's seen the Stones 20 times, and he said, look, you know, the last 10 years that they're not the act that they were, you know, clearly 20 years ago or 30 years ago. There's a lot of mistakes, but what he particularly likes about it though is that you're getting younger and younger people, and they seem to be enjoying it. So I don't know if I would want to go and see the Stones today. I don't know.
I'd love to see them in a club.
Yeah.
I mean, in Hamilton, I'm not sure which venue. Maybe Diggers would be too small. Bitty Mulligan's is looks to be like it's getting torn down or had a fire or something. But maybe Bitty Mulligan's in its prime a while back. The Stones would be amazing, and they're indoors. You know.
Well, you make a good point. And the latest album, Blue and Lonesome, proves that they can still play, you know, tight. And that album was recorded live. So yeah, in a small 300 seat venue, man, it would be a killer show.
Absolutely. I can't believe those shows. They did a couple of shows, and there's a famous show, and I think the first one of the shows was in New York, another one was in London, where they just rolled up to a bar unannounced indoors, and there's those famous photos, and Keith's in like the spandex tight t-shirt, these little kids at the front, and just unannounced, them playing a whole set to 150 people inside a small pub. That would just be incredible. Unbelievable. Like, you talk about being there. I mean, concerts are great and everything in the sense that, you know, it's an event. You talk about it for months. You get the ticket, you get the T-shirt, you get the autograph. You're with your buddies in a van. You're driving up. But concerts can get overwhelmed and lost in just the whole spectacle of everything. Nothing beats a small club, I think, if you're a true music lover.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people, especially in Europe or North America, where they can get an opportunity to see some of these bands, a lot of times, you know, they can get over, I suppose, the initial buzz of saying, wow, I'm seeing the Stones, and be blown away by that, and then go and see them the second time or third time and actually, oh, okay, sort of concentrate on a couple of things. But what I really appreciate, though, now, you know, especially, so, you know, Clapton's playing some live gigs in Europe. And what I love is that you've got people going there now and they're recording these gigs, you know, on their devices. And the devices that we've got now are pretty bloody good, you know, they're picking up good sound and good quality. And they put it here on YouTube for us. And, you know, we can sit there and watch a couple of these songs and watch these guys, and, you know, they're still doing pretty well, man.
Well, of course, yeah. And that's one good thing about the blues too, is here's these young kids, Eric, the Stones, starting out playing the blues, but blues is such a great music genre in the sense that you can be 100 and still play it, because it's not. You can slow it all the way down. So these guys are obviously getting older. They can always resort to going back to the blues.
Hey, I'm a blues man, and you get better as you get older playing the blues.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of these heavy metal guys, unfortunately, they can't quite do it in the end. They start out strong with their heavy metal, and they get older, and unfortunately, they can't quite do that. You know, those guys are playing 100 beats per minute and thrashing out those chords.
Well, you're right, and we have this discussion on the Johnny Bean show. You know, I'm a Van Halen nut, as you know, and a lot of the guys here in the chat are frequent participators of the Johnny Bean show, and we often have discussions about, you know, like David Lee Roth, for example. You know, he sang some great songs on some great records. But live, you know, they produced a live album recorded in Japan a couple of years ago. It's harsh. It's hard to listen to because you're singing songs that you were singing when you were 22, 23. A guitar player is pretty lucky. A guitar player, Eddie doesn't need to jump up and down anymore. He can just stand there and play his guitar. But singing, it's it is tough as these guys get older when they're singing classic rock or metal. It's tough, all right.
You got that right. Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, I love concerts in the sense that, we've talked about yayas and certain live concerts are etched in our minds forever. But that being said, there's something special about an album because it's obviously relaxed and it's just, it's capturing that little particular time period, and you can just play it back to front, left, right, and centre, front to back as much as you like. Concerts, you can get disappointed. You really can, because they're just human, aren't they? I mean, how many times have you've seen our heroes and they just haven't been up to par, and it's not their fault. It's the weather, it's the gear. They just weren't feeling it that night. I'm actually a bit lazy. I actually prefer listening to records at home. I'm not much of a concert guy. I wish I was. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we've got an excuse here living on the arse end of the world, because we certainly don't get the bands that our North American brothers and sisters and our European brothers and sisters in music get. But I'm a little bit like you too. I think I think the album is a key thing, and we're lucky that we were brought up with that idea of an album, because where I work, I get a good cross section of people. Guys my age, a lot of younger guys and guys older, and invariably you always talk about things, and music is the topic that comes up. And I ask, a lot of these young guys, do they listen to albums? And no, they don't. They just listen to songs. They, I'm not going to name the bands because it's not the point. But like I say, well, can you name all the songs on an album? Oh, no, I only listen to one song or two songs, or I stream this song, or I stream house music or something. I'm not listening to the whole album. And go, okay, it's interesting. It's interesting how it's changed.
It's like the industry has pre-programmed them where they don't think. The industry thinks for them.
Well, I love the point that you made earlier on an earlier show, and I'm going to keep coming back to it as we produce more and more of these shows, because I think it's a nugget, and it's a good point, and you have to take the credit for it. But the 50s, the chewing gum music, where the producers dictated it all, where they picked somebody because of the way that they looked. Yep. And they picked the song, and they gave them the song, and they went and sold records, and all of a sudden you had the bands come in, which broke that mold.
Yes.
And now we're seeing that whole 50s thing being repeated with what do they call it? Bubblegum.
Bubblegum pop music. Yeah, exactly. Is there a term?
Yeah.
Well, they had a whole. When we talk about the Monkees and that too, where it was all pre-programmed. Here we go. So here we go. The Archies, Sugar Sugar. I Think We're Alone Now. Tommy James, the Shondell, Down Dizzy, Tommy Rowe. There's a whole Hanky Panky. There's a whole bubblegum pop. Here we go.
Okay.
And it's actually a Wikipedia term. It's a genre of pop music with an upbeat sound contrived and marketed to appeal to preteens and teenagers, which may be produced on an assembly line process driven by producers and often using unknown singers. Bubblegum's classic period, which tied into the late 50s, obviously these teenagers became older, ran from 67 to 72. A second wave of bubblegum appeared 2 years later and ran until 77. So yeah, here we go. So best known acts of bubblegum were the Monkees, the Ohio Express, the Archies. So they were basically told what to do and what to sing. And there's actually, if you go deep into some of these guys, I think Tommy Rowe wrote a book. He said the industry was brutal. He said, it was him or someone else said that basically were told what to sing. They got ripped off in contracts. The producers had a huge cut of the songs. It was just a horrible scene. They never got to see the money that they, yeah.
So I can't remember if we articulated this earlier, but it's no problem if we're going to repeat ourselves because I can't remember everything. So it was the British bands in particular that blew that category apart.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've got to thank the Beatles for basically blowing the roof off. I mean, as we talked about this, Elvis was helpful in the sense that he was making a certain blending genres together, which would have been obviously rockabilly, country, and western, bit of gospel, and a bit of rock, and it was turned into rock. Because at that particular time, Chuck Berry and Little Richard, with the segregation, weren't really getting the appeal they deserved. You know, Bo Diddley's. So Elvis, as the saying goes, if I could find a white guy that sounds like a black guy, I'll make $1 million.
Well, I just want to interrupt, Carl, so hold that thought. We've got some people in the chat. We've got Sonia saying g'day. Hi, Sonia. And we've got West Coast Wogster saying g'day. Thanks for popping by, West Coast Wogster. That's a cool name. Sonia's been here before. Thank you, Sonia, for popping by. So, and yeah, R2, R3's got the Partridge Family. Yeah, that's bubblegum pop too, isn't it?
Well, that was pretty much that a lot of that stuff coincided not only with pop, but actually TV shows and movies and books, and it turned into like an industry in the sense of T-shirts and stickers and memorabilia and Bay City rollers and a whole bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Boy, did it date quick.
Yeah.
Leif Garrett.
Yeah. So, are we as rock and rollers and blues people, and are we hoping that there's a new band that's going to blow all this apart? There's going to be is there a new Beatles, a new Stones?
Well, unfortunately, right now, and that's the problem. And if you go on YouTube, or if you actually go to a bar, you can get quite a gifted singer who doesn't need to hire a band. He'll have his acoustic plugged into a cell phone, which is plugged into a speaker, which has got a downloaded app of a backing band. Sounds terrible, but some of these bar owners are getting away with paying $500 instead of $2,000 because they don't have to hire a band. Just hire one guy that does it all.
That's a good point. You know, you just need a looping pedal, a drum machine. You know, you're right, an app. I do it myself. I can jam here with the best drummer in the world, the best rhythm guitarist, and the best bass player, and I'm away. It's just, but I'm not making $1 million.
The economics in music now is to the point where they have someone that's marketable, like this guy called Drake. He's they're almost hand-picked, and they have a songwriting team. They give them a bit of an edge. They kind of make up some certain things. They get them hooked up with maybe an actress. They get a bit of controversy going around them, you know, and everybody falls for it. It's horrible. No substance whatsoever. See, when we think of bubblegum, we think of something sweet, tasty, but the flavor wears off, within 5 minutes? That's the whole bubblegum sound. Disposable. Gone. Nothing.
Yeah, well, I'm going to link that back to, I think, an exhaustion of creativity and thinking. You know, that this hopelessness in popular music that we've got now, and this is my own opinion, of course. You know, so feel free to contradict me, people. But this nothingness that we have as far as popular music is just a reflection of everything that's happening now. There's no social movement that young people can unite around like they did in the 60s. You know, they had progressive movements, they had peace movements, they had social movements.
Folk
You know, they were just there was a movement just to break away from what their parents were thinking, and rock and roll provided that glue, that cohesion that people could orientate around. What have you got now?
And also you had little countries appearing. We've got nothing now, but little like Eric Clapton has a famous quote. I mean, obviously he loved the blues, he loved rock, and you would have heard this quote. He said when he discovered reggae, he said it was like opening up a candy store again. It was like rediscovering the blues. So along that journey, you have these little genres, and we've got also another DVD I own, the Buena Vista Social Club, the Cuban jazz movement, Ry Cooder. Ry Cooder was a blues guitarist. We've talked about him with the Open G and the Slide and him doing some work with the Stones. You know, he travelled to Cuba and said, why aren't these guys discovered? So he took his son, a couple of microphones, a video camera, and lo and behold, there's these guys in their 70s and 80s making heavenly music.
Oh, and I don't want to bash modern music, because, you know, one of the great things about Spotify is that you can check it out. There are some cool cats out there playing some good stuff.
Yeah,
you know, they just don't have it in the top 20 or the top 40.
Well,
You know, there's I can't think of them at the moment, but, you know, Kenny Wayne Shepherd's been around for a while, and you know, there's a few other guys that have been playing this good music, but they'll never get on the radio. Because
well, they don't want them on the radio.
no,
They want people that are told what to do, that are not conservative, who are basically almost like disposable pawns.
So here's a question then for you and people in the chat, if they want to participate in it, or maybe leave some comments that we can take up next week. But so when was the last great decade of music? Was it the 80s, where you could be independent, you could be articulate, you could be original, and you had everything on the top 40. You had rap, you had alternative, you had Van Halen, you had classic rock.
I would say the 90s was the last decade.
The 90s.
You had Guns N' Roses with what's that? Use Your Illusion. Was that 91?
Early 90s, yep.
Eric Clapton's Unplugged.
95, 90, 94, yep.
Black Crowes.
93. Yeah, good point.
Neil Young did a couple of good solo albums. Bob Dylan did a couple of good solo albums.
Alice in Chains.
Yep.
Pearl Jam.
Nirvana.
Yeah. I'm going to give that music the respect that it's due. It's guitar music. It's guitar-based music. Yeah.
I think as the 90s kind of, and Red Hot Chili Peppers, I love them.
Van Halen with F-U-C-K and Balance in 95. Yep.
I think what happened was, soon as rap got big. Well, I don't mind Tupac Shakur, and they had Biggie, and they both died in 96. But then they realized that rap they could make a lot of money off, because you just had one guy beat machine, and they started to make this cultural movement as well. And then they brought out, as we know, Christina Aguilera and these little starlets, and just everything turned theatrical as well. So everything turned into basically theatre.
Well, R2, R3, he agrees with you. He's saying that the 90s was the last great decade. 2000s, not so good. So,
Nah.
yeah, for our type of music, at least, yeah, we got to say the 1990s were probably it, because the guitar was still a prime instrument, and there were Oasis. Carl and I make a lot of fun about Oasis, but they were certainly guitar, that Brit-pop movement.
Blur,
yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. I didn't mind. I liked Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. I mean, I don't own the albums, but I like some of their songs.
Oh, Chris Cornell. When he joined with the rest of those guys from Rage Against the Machine and produced a couple of albums, Audio Slave, my God. Wow. It's epic stuff. And it's a tragedy what happened to him.
Yeah, and if you look at makes me laugh, and it's actually sad at the same time, to the point where it's extremely depressing, and would always look forward to it, was watching the American Music Awards. They would always have, at the end of the show, they'd always have a Prince would show up, or Chili Peppers, or they'd have a great band doing a couple of songs. Obviously, they're highlighting all the modern music, but they'd always bring the legends up there too. Bruce Springsteen or someone doing something. Now, those legends are not even there anymore. They don't even invite them. Those American Music Awards are a joke. Britney Spears and Nicki Minaj and Justin Bieber and all that stuff. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's almost, they don't even have the audacity to bring back the greats, because the greats would always they'd always give them 10 or 15 minutes, these shows, get them to perform live. Chili Peppers would do a small set, or,
So what about some of the metal bands that we like, Megadeth, for example? Dave has got a new core of guys around, so, and they came up with an album a couple of years ago. Dave's still touring. You've got Iron Maiden still touring.
Yeah.
What about your boys, Judas Priest? They were touring there for a while.
Yeah. They just, unfortunately, I think they're falling a little bit by the wayside. I think Glenn Tipton came out saying that he's got something wrong with him now. Something's wrong with him. So they're just, unfortunately, they are
just getting old.
I mean, we spoke about 90s. Judas Priest came out with Painkiller in 91, which blew everybody apart. I mean, it's known as probably one of their best songs. I'm just going to quickly type in Glenn Tipton. There's something wrong with him.
No, I've missed that, because he's a legend. Sad to hear that he's a crook.
Parkinson's.
No, really?
He's starting to lose his mind.
Yeah, that's not good.
So something wrong with his coordination, fluency regarding his playing. What a shame.
Have you checked out a band called Greta Van Fleet?
No.
You need to check them out. They're some young cats, Americans. Yep. I'll send you a link. I've been defending them on social media, and it's good to see a lot of music fans are. But you get some smart asses out there who are calling them copycats and saying that they're just ripping off Led Zeppelin.
Oh, really?
But I think when you look at what young people are doing, young musicians, what they're doing today, these guys are a shining star in the cesspool of mediocrity.
Oh, neat. Okay, so it's a classic lineup. They're all brothers.
Three brothers, I think. Yeah. The bass player, the guitar player, and the singer are brothers, and the bass and the drummer is a friend. There's a couple of little bits and pieces of information I'll give you. His drum set is identical to the drum set that Bonham used, so they don't hide who their inspiration is. They don't hide that. They've stated quite clearly that they were brought up on classic rock and Led Zeppelin.
Love
it. They play three or four chord songs, power riffs.
Yep. Well, there was that Aussie band that had a similar sound. Was it called Jet?
Yeah, they're cool. Are you going to go my way? Yeah. Not that. That's Lenny Kravitz. Yeah. And yeah, that was a good song by Lenny, actually. And Black Smoke Rising. Yeah. So there's some good cats out there. There's some, but I think what I'm lamenting is that they're not part of this whole popular culture thing that the Stones were.
Yeah, what's actually happened is and there's another band that my uncle's got into a little bit. Cookie likes them. They're called the Stripes, spelt with a Y, STRYPES, and they loved the Beatles, the Stones, and Dr. Feelgood.
The Irish Cats. Yeah, they've been touring non-stop for 4 years, these guys.
Is that right? Wow. And they're not compromising. I mean, obviously that's a hard grind, not having, not playing, obviously touring, which is great, and playing live, which that obviously love, but they would be hard pressed for them to come up with a top 10 single, I mean, let's face it, it'd be great to have a top single and just sit back and just reap in all the rewards, all the money,
Yeah. Well,
guys truly love their music.
Yeah, the lead singer's awesome. He plays harp. Yeah, they're good. They're awesome. So if people in the chat want to check them out, Stripes, Irish Cats, and young Irish cats.
Yeah, my uncle in particular, who's friendly with a guy called Grant McCullum, who runs Real Groovy Records. I mean, they are into Wilco and a lot of these bands, that Sunvolt. A lot of these bands are supposed to. Ryan Adams is apparently a really good scene that's still going on. That's an underground scene, and these bands are supposed to be amazing. I'm not really into them because I don't have enough time to listen to it all because my uncle doesn't do anything. But there is a lot of good music out there. You just got to really search for it these days.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about social media, and we've discussed this before, and I think we've mentioned it on the show. If you discipline yourself and hook onto a couple of YouTube channels that can give you a bit of information and a bit of entertainment, you can hook onto a couple of Facebook groups where you're going to meet people that share the same kind of interest that you've got, and if you can play it, well, you get out and play it because ultimately that's what it's about. If you're not playing it, well, then listen to it. But you got to dig for it though. And it's just, once upon it, when I was a young guy, it was just dished up. It was like, here, there it is on the table, go for it. Pick what you want. I don't know why I'm feeling nostalgic, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I've been to a few parties, work parties, and when weddings, you name it, when push comes to shove, they'll always bring out the classics, the goodies, the CCR, the
I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett, that always gets everybody up.
Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, the sing-alongs, all that stuff. I mean,
Blues Brothers.
AC/DC, She Shook Me All Night Long, and even Grandma likes that one.
Grab a granny.
So it's just funny how programmed the public is into thinking that they're hip by listening to this top hip hop 40 pop crap hop, but when they actually get around other people and there's a DJ who actually knows what he's doing, everyone gravitates towards what's real and organic.
So were the Stones then, and Eric Clapton and Peter Green, these English cats, when they were growing up and they were discovering the blues and they were forming blues bands and learning blues licks, were they doing that in a reaction to the popular music that was dominant at that time too? They couldn't identify with that popular music, so they were discovering this American blues and putting their own twist on it.
Yeah, I think there's always been a commercial element in music, even probably going back to classical or centuries ago, where you had safe people doing safe music that was just safe. And I mean, obviously, in the 50s, you had the big band era, and Keith talked about that, and the large orchestras, and just safe stuff. And they were listening to blues, and that was probably very taboo. And taboo in the sense that who are these guys from another country who are, segregated, singing about, that's where Mick would have got a lot of his clever hooks and subtleties and managing to write clever lyrics, because these black guys were very intelligent with their lyrics, subliminally putting in not sexual lyrics, but, overtones of, girlfriends and the weekend and having fun. And
and also too that in a lot of their songs, when they were working in the field, were songs about putting the knife in or the boot into the boss, to the man. So while they were talking about going to the honky tonk or the gin joint after work, meeting up with their darling, they were also singing songs about
well, Jack Joplin did that song about "Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz," and that was an old black song. And
yep,
big boss man, you ain't so big, you just tall. That's all. All that sort of stuff. Was an outlet for them to basically think of sunnier shores. And we've talked about this before. Not only Mick and Keith, but the Beatles, Eric, Peter Green. They're really intelligent guys. They're not nerds, but they're very much in tune with what was going on in the world. So they would have realised, hey, we're not going to be listening to this Pat Boone and Fabian and this this stuff's manufactured. These guys. Here's this guy, this good-looking guy on the stage miming a song, and there's no band. There's a band backing him, but you can't see the band because it's behind a curtain. It's an orchestra. What's going on?
I just want to do a shout out to R2R3. If R2R3 is available around this time slot next week, if he wants, he can join us in the chat if he's available. So if you're hearing that R2R3 and it's something that you think you might want to do next week, we've been on air for how long? Have we been on air for, mate?
Oh yeah, it's getting a bit on. We've probably got about 10 minutes left.
Oh no, how long have we been on air for? An hour?
Hour and 20.
An hour and 20. Yes. So if you're available R2 and you want to jump on and give us a North American opinion on some musical things, you're more than welcome. In fact, anybody else here that's in the chat that wants to just drop us a message about an hour. Tu Binnen, another Canadian friend. I've met him on the Johnny Bean show. So, always positive with the comments, which is great. But, I agree with you. I think that's what I especially like about these guys is that they were, obviously extremely clever because, they had this artistic drive that made them want to pursue a musical direction that counteracted against what the money men and the money people were saying, and just had to do it their way, and that's why I respect them.
Love them. Yeah. Now, if you want to make billions of dollars, find out a situation where a minute percentage can control the mass majority. And that's where pop music came in, because we've talked about this before. The huge buying power of music is girls aged between the age of 10 to 16. Probably 60%, 7% of the people that buy music is that age group.
So who was buying music then? So from this classic period that we're talking about with the Stones from 68 to 75. So what was the demographic of people you think buying albums then?
I would say probably two groups. I would say the pipsqueak, pimple-headed people that were extremely young, who'd actually grown up and got their degrees and got jobs, maybe started young families and said, hey, listen, this is adult music and we're going to continue being their fans. And probably people, obviously their age, probably younger people who weren't tied up into that, who'd realised, we're not going to go down that pop road. So probably two demographics, or maybe three. Maybe the original fans that carried on with them, the bubblegummers that grew up, and then obviously the youngsters who weren't going to have it any other way but to listen to these great rockers. That's what I think. Yeah, and then obviously, and I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, they'll release an album or a certain song, and it'll be number one in a foreign-speaking country, not even an English-speaking country. So that's a testimony to their musical prowess. Yeah. I think you're right, and if you look at some of the shows that I watch on YouTube, the music shows, most of them are talking about music in the past. I was watching a show last night for a couple of hours while I was doing a few things while listening to a show, and talking about Van Halen in the early 1980s and how cool and how important and how hardworking that band was. This was a band that gigged 5 nights a week. Here in New Zealand, we probably think of bands gigging on a Friday or a Saturday, but it wasn't uncommon for people to go to concerts or gigs on a Monday night. Well, especially in the big cities, I imagine.
Yeah.
What was Van Halen? What was their? I mean, every town had their base. Like obviously, Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue had Los Angeles. Ted Nugent had Detroit. Lou Reed had New York. What was Van Halen's town?
Southern California.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
San Diego, Los Angeles.
Yeah. SoCal, Southern California is
because David Lee Roth was from Indiana, right?
Beg your pardon?
David Lee Roth was from Indiana.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that the Van Halens were from Holland.
Yeah.
Pasadena. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pasadena, because his old man was a doctor and gave them the financial security for them to hire a PA or to own a PA, so they had good gear right from the start. But and they were entrepreneurial. They were holding keg parties. There's a famous book, Noel Monk's book, where they were charging people to come and watch live bands. And that's the great thing about rock and roll. People were going to watch live bands and drink keg beer. Great.
Yep. No, it's a shame. It's a shame that it's a double-edged sword. Like you mentioned the word Spotify and YouTube. We've got to actually explore and discover things we've never seen before. But on the other side of it is it's created something that's so disposable that you have people that come and go on a weekly basis because it's shallow and so instant.
Well, you made a reference point earlier on, and I just want to pick up on it because I lost the thought, but it's come back to me. You said where bar owners now have got lazy and sloppy because now they can just buy a DJ or hire a DJ or play some records. without giving too much away, you know, when I was a young guy, when we used to go out on a Friday and a Saturday night, we had venues in town and it was all live bands.
Yep.
It was all live bands. You know, we went and we were dancing and chasing chicks to live music.
Yep. And that's unfortunately considered archaic now. The panel van and the roadie and setting up the drum kit and the PA and doing a bit of a sound check before the bar opens, and having dedicated fans and having a proper 2.5 hour set with 3 breaks and the crowd singing in, and it's a shame. Really,
and the bands were good. You know, the politicians who played here, they played top 40 stuff, classic rock. You could go out to Te Rapa Strait there and you could get some hard rock and some metal. You know, you'd go out to the Glenview pub there and you got the Echoes that were singing a lot of U2 inspired music. You know, it was great.
Yeah.
You even had a couple of reggae bands playing. Nanoa, you remember them? Nanoa, and Bronze Spirit. Well, Bronze Spirit played everything. Van Halen. You had to be really sharp.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, they got these guys now, DJs, and they're just pushing these buttons on a computer, and it's just techno. It's so robotic. It's basically soulless. No soul whatsoever.
Yeah,
I just stay home.
Hey, my friend, I'm just going to end the show, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
With one riff. So I've been playing the bass a bit lately, and I suppose going from the guitar and then playing the bass, it's a different kind of headset, and it's really interesting because you mentioned earlier before about how Keith played bass in one of the songs that you picked.
Heartbreaker.
Okay, so he even played bass on this song. So and he played bass on Dirty Mac. So what's going on with Keith Richards? Is he a closet bass player or something? You know. Yeah. Anyway, so but one of the great things about this tune, again, it's the simplicity of the chords. And I suppose the power of a drummer and a guitar player and a bass player playing together to come up with this great song. You know, Sympathy for the Devil is just
wow.
E. And then the chorus is that's it.
Amazing. And here I am thinking everything's so difficult.
Wow. These guys just blow me away, man.
Yeah, and it's got him playing on that Michael Lou Oldham, whatever it's called, Lindsay Michael Hogg, that DVD they did with Keith playing the bass with similar Fender Precision, wasn't it? Or
yeah,
and it just sounded great, but so simple.
Oh, yeah. And we're lucky here because we've got a few guitar players in the chat, and they know exactly what because you're a guitar player too. You know, you've played in bands and done well. But that's the great thing about music. It's like you can just go, wow, wow, yeah, to the day you die. So what's Jason saying? Thanks much for your time. Great discussion tonight. See you soon. Nice, Sonia. To Guru, Carl, all the rest. That's from Jason Wade. Thank you, Jason. And R2 saying he needs to buy a bass now. Don't buy a bass yet. Wait for the Wolfgang bass to come out. There has to be a Wolfgang bass.
Is that Eddie Van Halen? Is that a Van Halen bass?
Well, his son, yeah, his son's going to be releasing a record soon. So everybody is saying that with the release of this new record, there's going to be some gear.
Yeah.
And R2, R3, he's a metalhead. He's a Van Halen nut. And he's replied to our comment about he might jump on next. He might jump on next week, so that'll be nice. Yeah, I think Tubininen's right. Yeah, after they release his record, there's some gear, because you know what Eddie does now. Eddie's a guitar manufacturer now, Carl. You know, he's got his band. You know, they haven't retired or announced any retirement, but he doesn't need to now. He just sells guitars.
Did not know that.
Yeah. EVH Guitars. It's a partnership deal he's got with Fender, producing amps. Yeah, so yeah. Wow. The bass is what's missing, and then he'll have everything sewn up. Thanks for the thank you, Sonia. Thanks for the great live streams. Enjoyed them. Have a great night later. Wonderful. Thanks, Sonia. Thanks for popping by and helping out a couple of Kiwi guys from New Zealand. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words and the support we get, because yeah, Carl and I could talk about this for hours. In fact, we have.
Good. No, great. Well, not once again a nice nice discussion. Touched on some interesting things. Obviously, the riffs, the how the Stones how their music impacted the current events of the time as they do, and it's so present now was the lack of that urgency, that creativity that we so miss. You know, I think the key of tonight was what happened to the band. What happened to the band?
Well, I'd like to continue that conversation next week. What happened to the band, and obviously link that back into the topic of our show, which is with examples with the Stones and these British blues guys. What happened to the band? It's
yep.
Yeah.
And about the band being what like a family. What happened to the family? What happened to the band?
I see. You're a very clever guy. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a reflection of, yeah.
We live in a selfish world. It's all about individuals.
Yeah. I think you're making some interesting, yeah, because as we know, if anybody in the chat has played it in bands, you know, if you want to, I think Simon made the point last week. He said, if you want to truly know somebody, play in a band with someone. You know, or you know, or yeah. We'll yeah.
Yeah, we'll carry that on to next week.
Yeah. And you got Locking Nut thinking too, which is Locking Nut's a guitar nut too. So he better have, if he's going to jump on board, he can pull some of those guitars out. He's got an interesting way of describing his guitars. His guitars all have numbers.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 350. You know, I name my guitars. My guitars have names. So yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm going to say g'day, goodbye, and I'll ask Carl to do the same thing, and we'll catch you guys next week. Oh no, if all goes well, we'll be on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys on Wednesday, which will be Tuesday in American time.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye. Anything you want to say, buddy?
That's it.
Okay, peace. Thank you, guys.